right, it's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys were definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.
Caribbean Kitchen, Foods offer 7 unique blends of premium, low-sodium Jamaican seasoning that will add a burst of flavor to your dishes. Our authentic all-natural Jamaican seasonings are a game changer when it comes to adding a burst of flavor to your dishes. Our products are kosher, all-natural, contains ingredients that are gluten-free and GMO-free. Our seasonings are handcrafted with the highest quality ingredients. We source our ingredients from the Caribbean to capture the authentic taste of the islands. Unleash your creativity in the kitchen and savor the taste of the Caribbean with our spice blends.
All right. And to everybody else, as I made mention, do remember that this coming Sunday, we have a brother that is very dear, very respected to me. His name is Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. He will be coming to present on the Nat Turner Rebellion. All right. That's Nat Turner's Rebellion. He'll be here Sunday at 4 p.m. here at Zion Lex TV. And I'm going to tell you right now, he was one of the greatest inspirations coming up for me in the Israelite community. I even will be honest enough to tell you, and he'll tell you too, me and him have clashed a bit in the past. You know, personalities. I was a young kid, full of myself with a lot of ego, and we have clashed. But because we both hold to the decorum of Torah, those clashes never got ugly. They never got distasteful. And we are still brothers and friends to this day. And I'd be remiss to not highlight both our highs and our lows, as well as just to be honest and open enough to say that I would look at this brother as a young person in the Israelite community at 15 years of age. I met him after already being in the Israelite community for just 1 year. And a year after being in the Israelite community, I went to a congregation on the other side of Brooklyn called Shema Israel, where he was. And he was already what we call today a chief man, which is a title that I didn't acquire until about 2014, 2015. But he had that title in the Israelite community since the 90s, early 90s. And he's been putting in a lot of work. And one thing about him is you're going to hear his passion, you're going to hear his wisdom, and you're going to hear his no-joke style and approach to speaking truth to power about our people world over. Yes, he is pro-Israel. Yes, he is for the culture of Torah, but he is a nationalist. And he will make you understand that when we get here. When he goes into these particular areas of history, I don't think too many can come close to what he does. So shout out to you, Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. I personally look forward to that lecture this Sunday at 4 p.m. Everybody, we don't got no Super Bowl going on this Sunday, so hopefully everybody could lock in. This will be a lecture that your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your wife, all of your children, your co-workers, everybody can attend. It will be powerful, it will be prolific, but it will be respectful. And it's part of our Black History Month series. Salute to you, Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. I know you're going to do a remarkable job on the story of Nat Turner and Nat Turner's Rebellion. On that note, everyone. All right. On that note, everybody, shalom, family. I have a huge honor today of introducing a guest that I've known for, I want to say now, 30 years, a long, long time. The brother who I'm about to introduce knows me since I'm about age 15. Just to kind of recap, I came into the Israelite community at the age 14. I joined a temple in Brooklyn, New York, known as Beth Ab Shalom. I came through the sons of a great man in the Israelite community. His name is Crown Prince Zeri Shaddai. His sons are, he has many sons, but the sons that I knew at the time were Prince Kemuel ben Yehuda, Prince Benahu ben Yehuda, and Prince Akiva ben Yehuda, all sons of Crown Prince Zeri Shaddai Nasik ben Yehuda. And about a year after being at Bethab and feeling this whole Israelite identity thing, I said, let me venture out. They said, we could go to my father's temple. There's a place called Shema Israel. It's not too far from here. We're in the 90s right now, but they're right over there at the border of Brownsville. I said, all right, Saratoga, let's take the ride. Mind you, I'm a Flatbush kid, right? I grew up in Vanderveer, later on moved to the 50s. So I make my way to Shema. I meet several prolific elders that I come to love and enjoy over the years. One of them, Nasi Gadol, Chief Prince Sapor, the head of Shema Israel, hands down one of the greatest people that I have grown up looking up towards. But then there was this young brother. I say young because at the time, I think he was barely 19, if 20 at that, right? I know I was 15 when I met him. I'm born in 79. So I'm thinking, I don't know if he was 19 yet, Chief. You could kind of fill in the blanks in a couple of moments. But I immediately said about his spirit, where does this come from? Because I mean, I've been around a lot of powerful people at that time. Luckily, I say luckily, everybody doesn't have that type of luxury. Luckily, my dad went to Medgar Evers College. He was surrounded by some very strong people, and he himself is a very strong personality. But there was something about this young brother that they introduced as Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. Shalom to you, Chief. How you doing?
Shalom, Mori Abdiel. How you feeling today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. You know, when I do these type of live streams, you know, my intros are very short. I don't know how to be short-winded about your impact. This is my opportunity to do what in person I may not always be able to do. You know, as men, we at times we have our egos,
Right.
and I'm speaking of myself. And at times we might even be shy to say certain things, but quiet as it's kept, Chief, you've been a huge inspiration to me. I remember long before I was ever called up to speak, I would watch you speak in the temple. And the way in which you brought this truth was infectious, electric, and inspiring. To see somebody that I can't quite say is my peer, because you had me at least, I think, by 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years, but still nonetheless somebody I could relate to. You look like me. I look like you. You are of the age rank of people that I was already hanging around, right? So seeing somebody so relatable coming with such a powerful message, and at that, out of the Torah and Tanakh, that blew me away. So if you can, Chief, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are your origins in the Israelite community? Let's begin there.
Got you. So Shalom, family. I'm hoping and praying everybody within the sound of my voice on internet land, on the stream, is doing well today. Thanking the Most High God for everybody's life. Thanking the Most High God for all things and everything. And thanking you, Chief Moriarty, for even allowing me to be on this platform. Yeah, so basically, my origins in this way of life. As now I'm a teacher at Beit DCB, member of the Chief Council at Beit DCB, which is Beit Da'at Kakma Rubina, for those of you who don't know. My origins in this way of life. I was born in this way of life. Naphtali is my real name. I was born this way of life. My grandfather, you know, he was an Israelite, but during the era of Black Jews, you know, so they frequented places like Beit Shalom and Beni Yadat. That was their origin, and these were places like in Brooklyn and then places like Mammoth Keepers, whatever like that. Those first string of and I won't say first string, but those early string of New York based Israelite movements that happened like in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So my mother, I think my mother was born in 52. She raised us in this way, me and my sister, my older sister. We, as youth, we were at places such as Hashab Israel, Ben Azakin, which is the one of the camps in Brooklyn that a lot of our teachers come from.
When you mention some of these places, Chief, give us a timeline because they're here in Bnei Zakin and they might be thinking circa 2000. We don't need to know the timeline.
Ben Azakin is late 60s from what I believe. Ben Azakin was late 60s. Hashaba Yisrael was also late 60s. A lot of them came around during that era. And I was born in 76. My sister was born in 73. So that kind of gives you an understanding of where we came from. And as those camps were happening, that was the kind of a resurgence of Israelites that were big on culture, right? So that's when you had the turbans and the garments and the dashikis and stuff like that. It was kind of the movement was a little bit different during that time because it became a little bit more popular to wear your afro out and have braids and to have your long beard and stuff like. Not that the people before that didn't, but they kind of got away from the suit and ties and certain other things. You know what I mean? So it was a little bit more expressive regarding a resurgence of culture, stronger attitude and what have you. So from there, there were different parts that came up and down as places closed and came about. Okay. Yeah, my sister's trying to give me pointers now. But anyway, so as we came up, some camps closed and people broke up or whatever the case may be. We were in a place on Ocean Avenue and St. John's. We were trying to do like a resurgence, right, of some of the people from the older camps. And that place was called Ben Azak and Yakad. Kind of things didn't mesh right there. So, Shema opened up under the leadership of Chief Principal Ben Zavulun. And from there, I was able to do a lot of work, bring up, a lot of organization, structure, trying to do a lot of things in order to make sure that God's name was glorified, because that's what it was always about. And it always is about that. So luckily, brothers like you came along, helped a lot with the newspaper, in the creation of that, the Third Eye News. I
was gonna ask you about the Third Eye News. Right. So since you're there, let's start there for a moment. About 2 years into me being in Shema, I become aware of a newspaper that you start entitled the Third Eye News, right? I believe it went for about a good month and a half before you came to me and said, hey, we're looking for some of the younger brothers to write for the paper. Would you be interested? And I got to tell you, at that time, Chief, I was writing, but I was writing rap, right?
Right. But I knew you could write, though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I knew you could write because you was able to say something. It was something I got wind of, and I know, you can write because I think, remember when brothers was doing essays in order to get like.
Oh yeah.
So
we had to do essays for the turban.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, Chief.
Yeah.
In the Israelite community that I came from, we weren't allowed to just wear turbans. Right. We had to take a whole test for it.
Right.
But thank you for co-signing that fact.
Right. You couldn't just put it on ZZ's turbans stuff. Like we wanted to make sure that people kind of were up to par. Like you knew whatever your genealogy, you knew some parts in the Tanakh, whatever. So when we had the order, we were giving brothers tests. So I can tell by how you write that you can write. So I'm like, this brother, he can write. We do this paper, and it wasn't a lot of people that can really write, can really express themselves through written word. So I was able to tap you for it, and then you got to study. Like you didn't settle for the routine study. You were able to take books, and you were able to pick up a book or two. I'm gonna just say it like that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people won't take it upon themselves to go further than what they're being taught. And you did that. So I'm like, wow, this brother was able to student. I remember, one of your articles you wrote about, different things regarding Jewish identity. I think you wrote about some other stuff regarding
Nimrod and the pagan
Nimrod and the
yeah.
Right. So it's like, there were different things that you were able to write and express yourself very well about. That was essential. Right. So those things were very important. And those contributions are lasting contributions, because even right now there's a deficit of people who contribute in that fashion. And you can see the people are able to take the study of Torah and history and Israelite history seriously. It's a very important thing. You know what I mean? So, but I was blessed to utilize certain things to try to hone in all those components of individuals that, hey, we can do more as an organization, we can do more as a movement, we can do more as a nation. And I'm still pushing for those type of things today. So
as a matter of fact, on the note of the Third Eye News, just to stay just for one moment before you move on, it came to my attention years after my involvement with that paper that you actually took it to a couple of prisons. So talk to us about how much the paper was actually spread, because I heard that brothers was reading it all the way in Rikers Island. Some may have read it as far as up north. Tell us about the reach of the Third Eye News and some of the places that you believe or that it reached.
I know it reached 2 brothers in prison because they were writers like daily about it. I think one, we don't know how he wound up getting the paper, but he got it, right? He just wound up getting the paper and wrote us about it because he got the paper. We had the address to the camp in the paper. So he wound up writing, I got this paper. Boom, I'm glad your brother's doing something. I'm the only Israelite in my prison, and they were just being honest about it. So if you can send me more stuff whenever you get a paper out, just send it to me, whatever. So I remember one brother, we would always constantly send him, as long as we had an issue going out, we would send him an issue. There was another brother that wrote that he was in prison. One was upstate and one was in somewhere in middle America. I can't forget where, but I know one was upstate, and I can't tell you which one. But I remember one of them, one of those brothers, he just wanted some type of literature, whatever it was. So we sent them everything that we had. We had our booklets, our flyers, every issue of the Third Eye, because he just wanted whatever he can get his hand on. I think we sent them a Tanakh as well. Like whatever you can send me, like y'all are my official clergy, just send me whatever you have. So we wound up sending it to him there. And from there, word gets around, people spread it, the information. And, we were getting word that, other people were reading the newspaper as he was getting it. So it became something that people from different states would be being able to take advantage of. And you'd be surprised once you put something out there in the ether, how far it can actually go. You just have to have the confidence in the Most High God that, hey, I'm gonna do this project and God will see it through. The people that are around it may not appreciate it as much, but the people that don't have the information like this, they latch onto it because they don't have it every day. They don't have access to it, so they can take very little for granted being inside the house of many doors. So they'll take advantage of everything that you put out. So that's why something like this needs to be maintained. I'm looking to do a resurgence of it if I get the right people, but Torah for the fact that we were able to do it.
I'm grateful and thankful of that opportunity because as I mentioned, at that time I was writing, but I thought of myself as a rapper back then. And I even got my cousin who's the same age as me. I got him in a little bit of a chokehold, and I mean that as a joke because I don't want him to release the tape. There's tapes of me at a couple talent shows here in New York City. And as you know, the community don't know, Chief, but you know me when I had dreads.
Yes.
This community can't even imagine that Zion Avdiel had dreads.
Yeah.
So I don't want those videos out. You had dreads too. All of us had dreads back then.
I kind of just cut my dreads not too long ago. I grew them back, cut them again. the old age gets to you. Sometimes you don't want the front going and the back going on, you know. So
That's a fact, Chief. That's a
yeah.
fact, man. As we segue in this interview, before we get to Nat Turner, again, just familiarizing the audience with you. One of the things that I noticed about you from very early of meeting you is that Israelites in the temples, we covered a lot of topics. Our leaders, our teachers covered a lot of different topics. But you always had a heart and a special place for contemporary Black movements. You always showed great respect to the Honorable Louis Minister Farrakhan. You've said so many times that you are inspired by his journey and his message, regardless of the issues that may have came up with him and Malcolm. But to speak of the things that he has done, 1 million men, Black men, in the White House, to galvanize that movement. I want to ask you, Chief, what made you so impacted by some of these Black organizations, the Panthers and NOI? Talk to us about why they were so important to you and why it was also so important to you to take that message to the Israelite community.
So oftentimes what we, and this is probably coming from my Black nationalist education, not from my Israelite education, but we often look at the world, right? And I'm saying the Israelite community, and we don't assess ourselves to see what we're missing, right? And part of the missing part of their components that other people have mastered, that when you look at what they've been able to do, maybe you need some of that. Maybe you need some of that structure and understanding. And it's not that everybody was perfect. I think like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a perfect system for Black people. He wasn't perfect because none of us are perfect, but his system that he created was, to me, this is my opinion, please don't get mad at me, but I believe he gave a better form of Islam to Black people because he met us where we were. Right? He know that we were at a place where we needed to get off dope and drugs and different things, and we needed to get our sisters out of being prostitutes and pimps and stuff like that. So his structure, his organization was able to meet that challenge. So when we look at people such as the Panthers, look at what the aim was. The aim was to protect us against police brutality, and they were able to gather and galvanize the community based on a matter that was current, that people were dealing with right then and there, right? That regardless of what your faith was, you can understand this because regardless of whether you Baptist, Muslim, Methodist, whatever, that they don't care about throwing you in jail and depriving you of your rights. And this is what the Black Panther movement was based off of, and trying to create other things for the community. Free lunch program, which they stole from the Black Panthers. They did all of that stuff that they were doing in order to help their community out. And we need to have that same level of impact, because it's not about, okay, I can have faith and believe in God, but what is your impact? You know what I mean? David fought wars. That was his impact. Moses led us across the Red Sea and led us out of Egypt. That was his impact. There were actual things that people did outside of praying that allowed them to be active in the name of God. And then this is what you have to learn how to do. And the reason why I praise Minister Farrakhan in the way that I do, and I don't say praise as him being a God, but praise as in give him his respect and his props, because he was able to accomplish things in his lifetime that a lot of people haven't done.
That's right.
He was able to do a lot of things under the rest of the government watching him and everything else happening. And trust me, Minister Farrakhan knows who he is. And I'm not talking code or whatever. Minister Farrakhan knows that he is an Israelite.
That's right.
That's hands down fact. He'll tell you, other brothers will tell you, but his mission is what his mission is, based on the fact that he was empowered to lead the nation of Islam. That's what God had him do. So that's what God wants him to do. That's what I feel. That's his mission and his impact. When people criticize him or what his understanding is, and I'm saying to myself, listen, sometimes you have to have your impact. And if God blesses you with a certain level of understanding, you have to push it.
That's
if
right.
God didn't give him that understanding, then God didn't give him that understanding. So our job is to make sure that we do our best with the tool that we were given. God gave him a whole movement to be responsible for. And I think he's done a great job. And remember, my generation, I never saw Malcolm. I never saw Martin Luther King. I never saw Marcus Garvey. He's the closest thing to those things that we have.
Closest template. That's right.
He's the closest person to that when the youth, when the hip hop generation gets in the beef, who do they call? They call him. They look to him. Entertainers look to him and call him father and daddy. You have Stephanie Mills. She's saying all of us. We call them father. We call, like, they look to him as the person that can solve crisis. He's not a small time that, whether or not people admit it or not, a lot of people look to the minister for advice, for counsel, because he was the one in our day and time that spoke truth to power.
That's a fact.
Right? Self-contained, didn't depend on everybody else's dollar in order to make sure that he got what he wanted to get for the people. So he was able to have an impact. And it wasn't easy. When he left Wallace Muhammad and formed his own movement, and he was a threat for his life. A lot of people didn't want to join him. A lot of people didn't want to go to the new movement, but he had to scratch and crawl and do what he had to do to make sure that movement survived. And he had an impact, and he started slow and he persevered. And now the minister's 90 years old, 90 plus.
Yeah.
And he lasted. He was able to be there without being assassinated, and for whatever reason, but God has blessed him with long life, with children, with grandchildren, with great-grandchildren. So I value what he was able to do, like I value what everybody was able to do concerning the movement, because God allows us to play our part. Everybody's not going to be a Moses and a David, but you can have your impact. You can do what you do to have your impact for your generations in your day and time. And if you are able to do certain things, there's people that are criticizing him, but haven't done half of the things that he's done for the community. So
that's a fact, Chief. That's a fact.
The way I take it with people. Yeah.
Some people, when they hear me say it, it sounds like bragging, and I can understand why, because not everybody has the type of longevity that others may have. But this month makes 30 years that I'm in the Israelite community.
Amen.
I'm 44 now. I'll be 45 in November. You, however, have been in this your entire life, so that's about 47 years.
48 now.
As of January, right? So, and happy belated to you.
Brother.
On that note, Chief, I'd like to think in my 30 years that I've seen a lot, so that if a person asks me, where did we get it right as a community thus far, and where did we get it wrong as a community by now, there's a way that I would answer it. So as my last question leading up to what we're here for, to talk about Nat Turner's rebellion, my last question to you is, in 48 years of living as an Israelite, where do you think we get it right so far in this Israelite awakening? And where do you think we get it wrong? And I don't mean so much in doctrinal beliefs. I mean so much in living who we say we are. Where do we get it right? And where do you think we get it wrong?
So let me answer the wrong part first. bad news first. Let the bad news come first. Where do we get it wrong is that I think it's a matter of commitment, right? Right now, there are more Israelites. Like, me growing up, being an Israelite wasn't popular.
That's a fact.
I got teased, bullied, all types of stuff going on. You know what I mean? I had to do a lot of fighting because people are just an understanding. And part of it is, you have this mental conflict with you, where sometimes you want to stand up for yourself as being who you are, but then sometimes you want to assimilate because it hurts not being part of the crowd. You know what I mean? So I think now it's becoming a thing where we're trying to mesh too much of the world with God's word, and it's not for us to be people who would want that needs to play both sides of the fence. You know what I mean? And I think that when we learn to value God, value who we are, value our history, value this way of life, and that we have to understand that it's nothing without what we put into it. It's nothing without the faith, the support, and the energy that we put into this way of life. When people do whatever they do, you look at the commitment and the energy that they do it with, right? When brothers were 5% back in the days, they had their crowns on, they were able to spit out their mathematics. You knew the difference between those who were just following the trend and those who were really guard body and like, okay, they're down for this, whatever, because they that's the way they carried it. Rasta, you see people like, that's what we call them, Fashion Dread and Ting. You know the people that were just like having locks and smoking weed, but the people that they diet is strict ital, they even Sabbath keepers, they don't cut beard, hair, nothing, whatever. They that's who they are, because that they had a commitment towards what they, and the energy that they put towards it wasn't something that you can just fade. So even with us, we have to have that energy towards who and what we are. So that's the bad thing. We need to have the better energy. The good thing is the fact that, on the same token, because being an Israelite today is not something that's foreign to the ears, it's not something that's unheard of now. Your reach could be a little bit stronger, because you're not something that's too mystified to people. Because there are people that went to church and read the book every day and didn't know what an Israelite was.
Fact.
And you really could never understand. I'm like, wow, like you really don't know what an Israelite is when you read all of this stuff in the book and the Bible and the whole Bible, even Old and New Testament, talks about
it. Still don't know who the Israelites are.
Right, but they were people that they believed in a lot of different things, but didn't know what an Israelite was. But now you do. Now there's greater platforms for us to speak on, regardless of what your denomination within the way of life is. Just it's not foreign anymore. You know what I mean? So the dialogue could be there. People could bring more out. There's so many movements now. There's a brother. I don't know if you know about him. It's School of the Hebrews. He operates a church out of, I think it may be either St. Louis or somewhere. Not St. Louis. Somewhere down south. I think it's Louisiana somewhere. But you can see, like, even in his steps, he's doing a church service and everything, but he's saying we the people of God. He's going and talking about Edom. He's talking about different things. He's taking these steps, but you can see, and people get things done. God wakes up people at their pace, at the pace that he chooses to wake them up. But you can see a lot of things happening where people are being more aware of what's going on in Africa.
That's right.
And everywhere you see these things happening now, it's not, the children of Israel are not closet freaks anymore. You know what I mean? There's so many people out here, and I think the internet has helped us have more information about the different groups of Israelites, even in Africa, that when we were talking about Israelites coming from Africa, there were so many Black people that maybe you were an Egyptologist or maybe you were whatever, or Black nationalist, that you looked and laughed at us when we were talking about the Israelites in Africa. Now, you know for a fact that there are plenteous amounts of groups in Africa that know who they are. They just practice different religions.
That's it.
They know that they're Israelites.
That's it.
This is not foreign thing for us now. And those people that have been in this way of life for some time, that have been astute, that have gotten some level of knowledge in order to teach others, now it's time for us to do our job and to have our impact. Not saying that it wasn't before, but now the Most High is kind of laying a lot of groundwork for you, for you to walk through. He's parting those seas again, so now it's time for us to walk through.
That's a fact, Chief. That's a fact. This movie, this film, and there's been a couple, but this last film about Nat Turner, it was so impactful for a lot of people. The Birth of a Nation. Just to kind of give everybody another backdrop. You alongside some other brothers, you rented out a whole movie theater for us to watch Birth of a Nation. Talk to us about that experience. I could share and say what it was like for me as an invitee to be there to the event that you guys put together, but you guys put it together. So talk to us a bit about what went into putting together the event in terms of what inspired you to do it. And from there, I think that's where we can beautifully have this conversation about Nat Turner.
Excellent. So I believe it was 2016.
Yep, just about
2016. So part of the aim was, there was controversy with the movie from the start, right? And if you know anything about, and which we'll get into, the history of Nat Turner, it's not a movie anybody wants to see as far as Hollywood is concerned. They don't want to see a movie like that come out.
That's right.
Because they don't want to, and I'll talk about that later, but you've never really learned about Nat Turner in high school and junior high school. Is not something that people want to cover in Black history. It's the same reason why you really don't cover the Haitian rebellion in school, because you don't want to inspire.
That's right.
People to look at those things and say, hey, this is what was going on, and this was the reaction to the wickedness that we were experiencing. So when Nate Parker made the movie, the controversy, all of a sudden he's a rapist and all the stuff, and his situations with dealing with white women and all types of other things that was going on. All of a sudden he was being kind of castrated, and so the movie was going to be pretty impactful if they were doing this to him before the movie even came out.
That's right.
Movie comes out, we were like, I think I got with a couple of brothers. We were, this organization Amzadik that we were working with at the time. It was Tamaz. I called Maria. I said, yo, let's do this. Let's like have an event. You know what I'm saying? Where we can do like this movie, because if you know anything about, and I'm not trying to give anything away with the speech, but if you know anything about, which we'll get into, about Nat Turner, and the reason why I chose him for this topic, because he is kind of a midway between what we look at with prophets in the Old Testament and what we see with modern day revolutionaries and activists, right? He's very much a segue in a middle point to a lot of what we deal with as a people. And I explained some of the comparisons to people that we see now, and in people, some of the people that we see now in our recent history, and some of the people that we see in our ancient history. And when you saw the movie, Nate Parker was able to kind of give you a visualization of the savagery, right? From that the slave master was practicing, because Roots was an okay movie, but Roots really didn't tell these stories. Like 12 Years a Slave, right. They began to start telling the real what was going on the screen, to see how, to let you know how bad it was, how bad the whippings were, the things that they were doing to make us, to suffer, all of the pains, the rape, the mutilation. You need to see that, and those things have a different effect on the human psyche, so that you begin to understand that, it's not for you to get up and hate people, but you have to understand the circumstances that your forefathers dealt with and the circumstances that you're dealing with, right? Yes, we're going to get into some things regarding Nat Turner, even how he passed, how he was killed, and what they did to his body after he died. Like, there were things that they didn't even touch in the movie, but you were able to see certain things, and if you were there, so I know you were one of the people, like every time a Bible verse was being spoken, everybody in the crowd was
we looking up in our phones.
Yeah, we looking in the phone. He was reading the Bible verse along with them, because everybody knew the verses, and it's like the verses that he was saying, and his impact as an individual, you could relate to him, especially us as being Israelites, being people who aspire to the morality that God has given us. That's all he was doing, whether he was a Christian or knew himself, because some people say different things. I don't believe he knew he was an Israelite, but I do believe that he had a feeling of the impact of who he was. Like I believe he was a Christian, and he lived his life as a Christian. But nonetheless, I think still that impact that he had, that he felt that was his calling. I believe that was real. I believe that he was really being touched by the Most High.
I believe so too.
Perform. that he, like the same way that I talked about Minister Fred, these people are touched by God and the way that God chooses to touch them. So I believe that that's what was happening with him. But when you actually saw it, everybody was like, yo, my favorite part, being real, because remember, a lot of the older folks said this, oh, my favorite part when they started killing off the white people, because
that listen.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, we're not trying to invoke violence, but you are trying to look at the fact that, the way the script was going and the way the movie was going, you can tell that they're people that had enough, and there was going to be an inspiration for him to do something about the savagery that was being done. So you were just seeing like, wow, like, you felt that you wanted to be there when that was going on, whether or not they were successful or not. Your spirit wanted to be like, I wish I was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's a lot of it. A lot of it is we don't hear enough about the Nat Turners and the Dutty Bookmans and the Toussaint Louvertures and those people who, because they, a lot of us think that, we didn't stand up for ourselves, and that's far from the truth. We cut off a lot of people's heads for the sake of our freedom.
That's a fact.
There was a lot of things that stood in the way of our freedom, and a lot of that has to do with us as well. We need more soldiers and less sellouts. So that movie was in order to do something to galvanize us, so that mainly our youth can have a sense of watching something like that, as like all the families came out. You know what I mean? So you were able to watch that with your kids right next to you, and just see the impact of what these experiences were that some of your people have went through that you didn't get to see, because the closest thing you got to see was Roots and Kuta Kente and stuff like that, and that was a pretty nice story, but that wasn't the horror
that's a fact, Chief.
So we want to see that horror. Yeah.
Tell us about Nat Turner, right? Let's start off with his genesis. Tell us about young Nat Turner. I believe there's a lot of his story that hit the big screen, but as you noted, I don't think the big screen and the time allotted is enough to do it justice. So give us the genesis of his life story by starting with his beginnings.
So with Nat Turner, the ancestor, he was born a slave. And the funny thing about him was, like, I think he was born around 1800, but you never know with slaves, because they didn't have to really record when he was born. Like they got to it when they got to it. So a lot of people don't know their actual birthday, but he was born around 1800 in Virginia. And he was sold a lot, moved from place to place. But one of his slave masters, I forgot, he was named after the people that owned the Turner plantation, but he wound up being in another plantation when he set everything off. I forgot the name of that plantation he was at, but it wasn't the Turner plantation anymore. But he was not Turner originally after the Turner plantation that he was at in Virginia. They noticed that he was an exceptionally smart person, or especially for a quote unquote NIGGER. He was, as a slave, he was exceptionally smart. So that's like, well, let him. He was allowed to read and write, right? And not only that, he became somebody that they trained him in ministry. So he learned a lot about the Bible. And when you are able to read a book back and front, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have. You see the black and white, and you see some of the hidden things that a lot of people don't see.
Yes.
And those are the things that sometimes they're not meant for everybody to know. They're meant to touch and inspire you. And a person that, he was the one that was allowed to go and teach other black people in ministry and stuff like that. And part of the issue was very interesting. He at one time he ran away from his slave master. Because remember, Nat Turner died young. He died 30-something, 31 years old, 30 years old, if that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was able, he ran away, right? Because his father ran away as well. His father ran away for his freedom. He decided to do the same thing. But he said that God called him. I called him back the way Hagar was called back to Sarah. God called him and said, "Nah, go back. Go back." And then he told his slave master, "No, God told me to come back, right? To submit to my earthly masters." But the funny thing is, it wasn't for the reason that these masters understand. It wasn't for the passive, I'm coming back to serve you. Just, no, I'm coming back because God is calling me to start a revolution. And I can't start a revolution from the outside of the plantation. I got to start it from inside the plantation. So that's the reason why he felt that he was called back and God called him back. It was one of the visions that he had. The second vision is that he saw the slaying of the serpent, right? And you know how they interpret different things. It's like, they call it the slaying of the devil. Some people call it slaying of the dragon. And he said he saw the Messiah and different things, whatever. But whatever vision that he was given, and this is how he was able to interpret it. That's what he saw. So he felt, and then it was an eclipse that was happening around the same time. This is around 1831. He felt that was the key. So he always knew he had to do it, but he felt that was the time for him to do it. Right? He felt that those were the signs that he saw for him to make that stuff happen. So with that, he was in the planning phase for some time. And as him growing up, he witnessed atrocities and different things that was going on. And he knew, like, he just felt in his spirit that he had to do something about it. And God was calling him to do something about it. And this is why I say what I say regarding the inspiration that a lot of times people may get and the zeal that people may get. If you understand who Samson was, right? Samson was a Danite who dwelt in the land of Judah, who at that time we were being harassed and plagued and enslaved by the Philistines. God called Samson to be what we call today a savior. But sometimes the savior is not like, somebody coming down and anointed. Sometimes these saviors are actually warriors.
That's right.
His job wasn't to fully save Israel. His job was to be the inspiration for people to look to.
That's right. That's right.
Because he didn't have a particular mission. His mission was to cause the Philistines hell, right? To cause drama. And he didn't have an army. It wasn't like there was other people that took up his cause, and he was just like, he just did stuff that caused them to be married to Philistine women. They harassed them, so he harassed them back. He killed 1,000 of their soul. Like his thing was to be the unafraid guy to stand up, so that when you had the Davids and the Joabs that come up, they were already inspired by men like Shimshon.
That's right.
They were inspired by men like Samson. Like, well, if he was one man that can do it, imagine if we all stuck together and decided to fight our enemies. And if you saw what David did to the Philistines, he made the Philistines damn near extinct.
That's right.
David made the Philistines damn near extinct. And this is the type of impact that one man can have. And the reason why I said it is because, remember, when it came to Shimshon, you read that, and all of a sudden the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And people think that his power was in the hair and the fact that he was a Nazarite and stuff like that. That was part of it. But every time he was able to go to battle, it's because that's when the Spirit of God came upon him. He had conditions. He had conditions to maintain his strength, but it was that spirit that came upon him that was able to have that level of impact when he went to war. And the middle ground that I'm discussing is the fact that Nat Turner was supposedly inspired by the same thing, according to Nate Parker's research, right? Nate Parker research has him stating or being revealed as one of his revelations, because he had a few revelations, but one of his revelations or dreams he saw in the book in Samuel, the book of Samuel, when God told Saul to smite Amalek and kill everything, kill their property, babies, the women, the children. He said, slaves, kill everything. And that's what Nat Turner attempted to do. They said even if there was a part, they didn't show it, but there was a part in their history where when they went to kill a master, they tried to kill everybody in the house, and they forgot to kill the babies, and he went back and killed the babies.
They went back.
They went back and killed the babies because they looked at that, according to Nate Parker's research, as them slaying Amalek. So
Mm.
this is where these correlations come, where people believe that maybe he knew who he was and maybe he didn't, whatever. I don't have any substantial proof, but you can kind of feel like he felt that zeal the way Israelites looked at their adversaries to say that, when God said that he will have war with Amalek forever, that's the way he looked at it. Like, this is something that's going to be an ongoing thing. And even if I give my life for this cause, and mind you, the way they looked at it back then, it was horrifying. But he killed 55 people. And for what he did, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of people, but that was enough that he caused a stir throughout this nation, right? He caused a stir throughout this nation. A lot of what he did caused harsher punishments and laws for Black people during his time. After
Yes.
1831, what they decided to do was outlaw, especially Virginia, outlaw reading and writing, because they learned that one of the most dangerous weapons that a Black man can have is his mind. So they decided to, like, y'all Negroes can't read, y'all can't write, any type of scripture that you get, we're going to hand feed you certain parts of the book that benefit us. A lot of things changed then, right? In that time, and not to say that they were so pro about our education, what have you, but it wasn't like a no the way it was until Nat Turner's rebellion, because they learned that, hey, we made that monster by giving them books and allowing him to read and allowing him to write and allowing him to preach, right? Because if you read Torah, you read the Holy Scriptures, you understand that it's a very revolutionary book. A very revolutionary book. Either we fighting to get out of Egypt, David's fighting the adversaries, he's fighting Edom, he's fighting Amalek, he's fighting the Philistines. We are fighting for our freedom in Babylon. There's always something where we're at war, trying to regain our soul and our relationship back with God. Most of the fighting that we deal with, or that we have dealt with, is internal and spiritual. It's very, very less physical, but just fighting nonetheless, right? So it inspires that idea for freedom, because we were people that were enslaved all the time. So, we were always in a situation where we are wanting or fighting for freedom, and we're looking to God for that freedom.
That's
So,
excellent.
yeah, with Nat though, that middle ground. Well, I discuss some of the past part, without discuss some of the future parts in a few.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm thinking of in this moment is I went to the African American Museum, the Smithsonian in DC, where they have on display, and I'll just put it up on the screen. They have Nat Turner's Bible, and I remember looking at how big and how thick it was.
Yes.
Now, it wasn't the typical Bible that we get when we go up north or when we go to the island, Rikers, right?
Nah.
The little small little orange or yellow New Testament without what is considered by many the revolutionary Old Testament, right?
Right.
His book seems to certainly include both old and new.
Right.
And I remember all of us in 2016, as we're watching the movie, as the narrative is playing out on the big screen, and Nat is looking at the white preachers and them going into the message in the gospel that was curtailing the love for humanity and the need to want to overcome people with a spirit of love. Nat looked around and was like, nah, love ain't gonna get us out of here.
Exactly.
Nat turns the book all the way to the beginning and is like, what about this Moses story?
Right.
So when it hits that part of the movie, all of us started going crazy, right? All of us started going crazy. So you touched on it a bit, but I want to emphasize something. There is a growing narrative in the secular Black conscious community that the Bible was used to enslave us, and therefore it's the slave master's book.
Right.
Due to the ignorance of many, they even go so far as saying, well, King James wrote the Bible, it's the white man's book. Right. And this is, of course, their ignorance, right? A Google search will tell you that King James didn't write the Bible, right?
Right.
But my point now is, in the view of many secular Afrocentrists, the Bible is viewed as the thing that helped to keep our people in mental bondage, which in some sense it was,
Right.
as well as some people falsely believing that it's the white man's book. So, talk to us a little bit more in depth about stories of revolution in the Bible that were clearly inspiring, Nat Turner. Like, what are some of the stories that come to mind, apart from what you mentioned, that
Right.
you think really inspired this man and would have been inspiring to his generation?
I don't think that there was a particular story. If you saw the movie, right, and this is the movie part, this is not, but the movie kind of connotates to a lot of the actual history. If you saw the movie, I don't know if you remember the scene, but there were three whites that were trying to go back and forth with him with scripture.
Yes, I
And
remember that part.
he bested all of them, and they got so mad with him, right, that he couldn't preach no more and stuff like that, whatever. So, because he knew the book better than they knew the book. So
To this day.
So he was being inspired by the fact that he was able to really delve into the religion, right? In a deeper part where he kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? He surpassed the Christian doctrine that they were giving him, where he was able to delve so deep in the book because he knew it so well. Remember, he was reading this book for a long time. He was trained in the book. You know what I mean? Right. And if you understand, and this is why I get to men like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, who, they were not only ministers, but their parents were ministers, their fathers were ministers, right? So they were around a lot of this. They just had to tap into a certain energy to learn about the book and remember what a lot of people think, that are Afrocentrists that believe that, the book was meant to enslave. The religion was meant to enslave you.
That's right.
Not the book.
Not the book.
Right?
Right.
The book, and remember, the slave Bible was different from the regular Bible. When they started creating the slave Bible didn't have any scripture really in it. It had different passages that were given to us for our religious instruction. Right? Religious instruction is not teaching you God's word. It is religious instruction. I'm instructing you in these parts to give you a sense of what I want you to know.
That's right.
Not giving you what you need to know.
Just enough to pacify your passion to want to become liberated, to make that obsolete, and just enough to conquer you and indoctrinate you.
If you look up now, there are still copies of the slave Bible floating around, that if you ever looked it up, if you Google it, those of you listening, Google the slave Bible, you see half of everything is missing. It's not even a book. It's like, it's just passages. It's just passages for Negroes to get, slaves to get, that benefit the understanding of the slave master. Now, the slave master can't use that version of Christianity. He can never use, because it doesn't suit him, right? Doesn't suit who he is or what he can be, but that's what he needs for you to understand. It's a message of passivity. Am I saying that correctly? That he needs to instruct you in order to make sure that you're docile. So as long as you believe that, hey, if I believe in this, if I do good by my earthly masters, if I do all of this stuff, that I'm good and I'm okay, and if I live right, then I'll have a place in God's kingdom. And there's nothing of that nature that God has ever said. You know what I mean? So once you get that, and that's what you have, a person that studies the book back and forward, they understand that. They a Nat Turner would understand it. That's why you think a guy that was a Christian would think in his heart of hearts, God is telling him to fight. That's what he's beginning to see. He's seeing, and he's a person that reads the book, and he's not seeing the messages that the white plantation owner wants him to see. He's seeing the messages that God wants him to see.
That's a fact. There's a signpost that I'm going to share the screen for a moment and just point out for everybody that you can see in Southampton, Virginia to this day. It reads, Nat Turner's Insurrection, On the night of 21 to 22nd August 1831, Nat Turner, a slave preacher, began an insurrection some 7 miles west with a band that grew to about 70. They moved northeast toward the Southampton county seat, Jerusalem, now Cortland, killing about 60 whites. After 2 days, militiamen and armed civilians quelled the revolt. Turner was captured on the 30th of October and tried and convicted and hanged on 11th of November. Some 30 blacks were hanged or expelled from Virginia in response to this revolt. The General Assembly passed harsher slave laws and censored abolitionists. I just want to say, Chief, as I'm going to ask you to comment on what we're seeing. For me, this doesn't read as a monument to make us aware of this site, this place, and what happened here. It seems also like a trophy in the form of a monument.
Yeah.
It seems as if the way that it's worded, that it's memorializing not his fight for freedom, but it seems to be memorializing the way in which he died in the audacity to think that he would make these people free.
Right.
I'm sure you've seen this before. What's your take on this?
So the very fact that there's a lot of different things like this in countries in the South, especially,
Yeah.
but they have these little bios of what happened in certain areas. The very fact that they call it an insurrection, right?
Right.
Because they give that word like, he did something bad. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
like he did something bad. That's kind of what they want to connotate, like he did something bad when he, as they call it an insurrection, we call it a revolution, right? He started a revolution. That was his aim, because he was trying to set people free. And there's nothing about an insurrection. There's nothing in insurrectionists about somebody trying to set themselves and their people free. And we see that now, right? A freedom fighter is a freedom fighter. That's what they are. They're not trying to hurt you, but if you are standing in the way of their freedom, then that's what it is. So he had this vision in order to do what he did. What they stayed on there, like, they say that he was tried. So that a lot of the people that were part of his group, his freedom fighters, they were killed first, right? They were caught and killed first. I think he was like one of the last people to get caught. That was part of the group. He was found, like he was hiding in a hole or something of that nature when they found him. And he was tried by other. They had a trial, but the trial was basically semantics and show. He was tried by plantation owners, right? Obviously, they were going to kill him, whatever. But one of the horrendous things that wasn't always revealed, but is now coming out. There's some rumor that they actually bald his skin and made his body.
Yes.
I haven't found like the concrete evidence to support that.
Right.
There's some things that are being said. I wouldn't be surprised
right.
if it was. But what they did find out was, he went, they hung him, and they took him to whatever, the coroner, whatever the case may be, and he was skinned. And
he was skinned, yes.
He was skinned, and he made purses and belts and stuff like that out of his skin. Now, you may like, oh, wow, they did this with a lot of black people, right? This was a common practice that they would make leather and goods out of black skin for sale. They took part of his bones and sold it as souvenirs. This is how much they were in fear of this man, where they were able to take his dead body or parts of his dead body and make trophies out of his dead body, which was something that they did with a lot of lynch people. They would burn
That's
you,
right.
take parts of your genitalia, take your knuckles and sell it, make postcards out of your body. But that impact that he had was because of the level of fear that he wrought. And I think that when they have those souvenirs, they look at it like, okay, this person is conquered. There's no different from, that's why we have to be careful. When you see Indian heads on walls, it looks like it's a nice ornament, but that has a deeper meaning to it. You know what I'm saying? The Indian head is supposed to be the conquered nation. You're conquering these people, like the way you have a lion head and a moose head on the wall because you hunted them and destroyed them. That's what the Indian heads in some of these American homes represent. It doesn't represent my Native American heritage. They represent the fact that, no, this is my representation of a conquered people. So this is kind of the same thing that they did, but they actually did it with our flesh and our blood when it came to conquering. So they did conquering us. So they did this with him because he represented the imposing idea. Remember how vivid white supremacy is now. It was vivid back then as well, where they believe that in the supremacy of white people over black people, that it was divine in nature. And part of this is kind of showing that it's okay regardless of whether I'm a Christian. Remember, these people are Christians.
Yes.
And regardless of whether I'm a Christian or not, I can but by the nature of white supremacy, can take a human's body, right? Either burn it, castrate it, or I can take his body and skin it and make a person a belt and out of it and sell it for souvenirs. And this is some of the barbarism that we've experienced. And part of what people didn't understand is that this level of corruption and insanity was never going to be sustainable. It was always going to lead to a bloody revolution. It was always going to lead to some level of bloodshed, because nothing like this can continue and on God's earth without God intervening in some way, shape, or form. And I get it. We're here, Deuteronomy 28, we were here to be punished, but the nations went as far as they went, and they did things that even God had to turn his head and say, wow. You know what I mean? Like, y'all took it to another level. You know what I mean?
A whole another level, which is why the brother's quote on the screen is so telling and so opportune. He quotes Numbers 35 and 33. Hallelujah. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, except by the blood of him that shed it. This is one of the reasons why they don't want us in this side of the Bible.
Nah.
This is one of the reasons that Nat Turner was deemed so dangerous. Just short of 100 years later, you have J. Edgar Hoover.
Right.
And you have to imagine that he is not a dummy. He is also drawing from earlier histories in his approach on how to deal with black men contemporary with him. Right. There's no doubt in my mind that J. Edgar Hoover is also assessing the quality and the success of Nat Turner's rebellion when he's looking for Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
And when he's writing Beware of the Black Messiah.
Right.
Talk to us, Chief, about the power of the Black Messiah per se, the fear of a Black Messiah that this country has. What is behind the fear of a Black Messiah in this country?
So I want to take it back, because if you look at our history, right, there's has always been these histories of anointed one, and everybody that's anointed by God is not anointed with oil, and
that's right.
These are the individuals that God has chosen and clearly chosen to do a job. Your job may be temporary, right? Your job is just your job to do, your impact. And that's why in our culture, there was never like a Messiah. There's always people that have come up to do their job.
That's right.
Moses, when you read Moses' story, the writers that wrote regarding Moses' story are letting you clearly understand that he was selected for a job. He survived as a baby. He grew up in Pharaoh's court. He was able to do certain things that other people didn't do, or have the experiences that other people didn't have, because he had a purpose to serve. And he wound up serving that purpose. David, right? We read about a star, that precursed his life. And he was an individual, because you had Saul, you had a king, but he was an individual that was able to bring the nation of Israel to a pinnacle that the previous ruler couldn't do. Right? He was able to conquer nations. David had Edom underfoot, Philistines underfoot. He had the Syrians underfoot. He just, he made us a nation. He not only made us a nation, he made us an empire. He had to live with impact. We had Moab and Ammon underfoot. Like, he put in work.
He put in a lot of work.
He put in a lot of work. And then there's other people that were able to, then you had a son that came that was able to usher in a time of peace. You've always had individuals that were able to come up and do the job they needed to do. King Josiah, you always had these individuals that come up and do what the job they need to do. And we shouldn't look at Nat Turner as any different. And when J. Edgar Hoover was on a continual hunt to make sure that there is no rise of a black Messiah. They saw King as one, right? But then they compromised King, and then King came back. They saw Garvey as one. They saw Fred Hampton as one. They saw all of these people. They saw Malcolm X as one. They had to make sure that they undermine these movements, because it's like having messiahs is just like having prophets. That's all. You had Ezekiel that prophesied in Babylon, and you had Jeremiah that prophesied in Israel. They were both prophesying about similar things, same thing. But one was just in different areas, speaking to different crowds, but they were contemporaries, right? We had Malcolm that was on one side and Martin Luther King on another side, and they got to a point where they both understood that the enemy is against them. They understood that. They understood that the J. Edgar Hoover was on both of them, and they had dockets on both of them. King was very much aware, because he was getting calls talking about, don't accept the Nobel Peace Prize, or we're going to kill you, or we're going to expose the fact that you were sleeping with white women, whatever. He took it anyway. You had Malcolm X, who, when he went to Mecca and in Africa, he had 2 people from the CIA following him everywhere he went.
That's right.
Everywhere he went. And it got to a point where, which a lot of people don't know, Google it, you'll find it. You will have the actual telegram. Before Malcolm died, right? Malcolm went down south to talk to SNCC. While the only reason he didn't meet with Dr. King, because Dr. King was in jail at the time.
Okay.
But he talked with his wife. And his wife, he told him, like, I'm gonna be real with you, man. My husband, and we offended by the Uncle Tom stuff, like you said, or whatever the case may be. Like, so what's good? And he's like, I retract all of those words. I regret saying those things. I said a lot of things in order to do, to have a certain impact, because I wanted to make sure that people were aware of certain things, whatever the case may be. But he said, I apologize, right? I apologize for all of that stuff, and let's work together, whatever. Because it said after the bombing of the 4 girls in Alabama, he said, this is not a Muslim struggle or a Christian struggle. This is a struggle for black people for us to be free, and to make sure that people are not doing those type of things to us ever again.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And even though Dr. King was nonviolent, Dr. King wasn't stupid. He wasn't a person that was looking at the world like, I should be defenseless. Because remember, he started off with the Deacons of Defense. He had armed guards that protected him.
That's right.
It wasn't until now, I'll get to that later. I don't want to, but Bayard Rustin was the one that was like the civil rights person that dragged him into the civil rights movement and took that protection. But Bayard Rustin had a different agenda. His agenda was totally different. And Dr. King actually stated after Malcolm X passed, I think he stated to Harry Belafonte, he said, I think I taught my people to integrate into a burning house. He began to understand what God had revealed to him was that America wasn't our home, and America's not going to last. America's going to be destroyed. And I'm teaching my people, instead of them being separate and building with God, that they should be a part of the American dream. And he said he regrets even saying that to his people. But what I was going to get to was Malcolm sent a telegram, and that was intercepted by the FBI to Martin Luther King, right? Stating, Brother Martin, and I'm paraphrasing, Brother Martin, such and such, Let's work together. And next time we march, we're not going to march with, just women, whatever the case may be. We're going to march and we're going to have soldiers, strapping soldiers there with march, brothers that can defend themselves next time we have a march. And he was willing to go that far to say that we're going to have brothers out there. And remember, Stokely Carmichael marched with Dr. King, and he wasn't a non-violent activist.
Right.
Stokely Carmichael believed in revolution.
He sure did.
In King enough. It's not about that. He believed in that person enough that he was willing to say, I'm going to sacrifice. And you'll see pictures of Stokely Carmichael marching, Kwame Ture, marching with Dr. King, ready to fight. And Dr. King, like, trying to pull him back and show him restraint and whatever case may be, because he was like, yo, I'm ready to, and that's,
if I'm not mistaken, he's associated with the Black Fist, right? Stokely Carmichael in some sense.
No, he was because the Black Panthers are always associated with that. So that wasn't like out of him, but that was the time when the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they merged with the Black Panthers. And I think he was part of the group that started the original Black Panthers, because the original Black Panthers were a political and student group. They had adapted the name in Oakland. Huey and them started that part, and they called themselves the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. But that part, they actually had a Black Panthers before that. And what Stokely Carmichael decided to do was, a lot of people joined the Panthers. After King died, and especially after Malcolm died, that became like the movement. Like, okay, we just not going to let people shoot down our leaders, because Malcolm died in 65, King died in 68. So a lot of the Black Panthers started to start that process after Malcolm. So Malcolm was on nationalism, and they became more nationalists at that time. Not that they were against King, but they believed in, if you're going to do this level of harm to us, then we are going to defend ourselves against this level of harm. You know what I mean?
That's
whether it's legal, whether it's the cops doing it, whether it's white people coming into our neighborhoods, whatever. But that merger between Dr. King and Malcolm X, the government cannot allow that to happen, because then you have people that you had divided for years fighting on both two fronts.
Yeah.
And if you look at what King's mission and a lot of his speeches that they don't air after Malcolm X passed away, his mission, his talk was more revolutionary. His talk was about economic struggle and equality for Black people, which is something that they can't, because now you're talking about reparations. You're talking about the distribution of wealth, that everybody pays taxes, everybody in this country gets, but why is the Black man getting getting shorted? Right. Why are we being ran off our properties and not being recompensed for the evil that was done to us, when there were historical things that happened to us? Right? There were historical things that happened to us where, if you look at Williamton, North Carolina, if you look at the Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi, if you look at all of these things that happened where we were terrorized. When you look at Black Wall Street, when you look at all of these things that happened to us, we were terrorized by other citizens of our nation, and everybody else that happens to gets compensated or get the people get locked up or what have you, but not us. It's like almost it was almost a check and a balance for Black progress that other white citizens, that when they experience their white rage, they're allowed to do in order to put us in check.
That's a fact, man. Thinking of some of these early movements, and of course they were preceded by many more, but like in the 60s, coming into the 70s, there were some really, really prolific figures, and they gave many of us a template to draw from. Where did we drop the ball, Chief? I asked that question in humility, right? Yeah, I asked it in humility because I do believe that our generation is trying some to the best of their ability, but I do think in some sense we have dropped the ball, because I don't think that we've effectively brought movements to the forefront like what we had in the 60s and 70s. And that's just my humble opinion. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree or believe we dropped the ball? If so, how? If not, why?
The ball is dropped. And I'm not saying the ball is dropped because we were just blank, or we were just negligent of what was going on. The ball is dropped because it's the way our government always restructures every time there's some level of revolution. They always talk, okay, this chess, you make a move, and the counteraction of our government is always to do something to counteract these moves. We had the revolution, we had civil rights era, we had Dr. King, we had the Black Muslim movement, we had the Black Panthers, and then we had an era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We had a crack epidemic. So you always have these things of slowing down progress. We had these days of independent schooling where people like, we pulling our kids out of public schools and we're going to have our own schools. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then they started saying, well, if you don't send your kids to school, we will lock you up. We will take you, we will put you in jail. If we find out that your kids are missing school or doing anything secular and you don't have a license to teach and stuff of that nature,
real quick,
we will put you in jail.
Yep.
And your kids will go into foster care where they'll get molested, raped, abused, and given an even worse education that's not under your watch. So now you in this situation where the 80s brought in that Reaganomics, and it was terrible. Then you had the welfare system in itself. Black people were poor in this country, but we were together. Fathers were still in the home. A lot of the statistics that we read often are actually not true. The welfare system, statistically, and as a matter of pure fact, separated and divided the Black household. Before that time, we may have not had as much fathers in the home as others, but we had at least 70% of the fathers that were inside the home. The families were still together.
That's right.
We didn't have everything. In Jamaica and Trinidad, we didn't have everything. Everywhere you go, we were struggling to do what we had to do because nobody was giving us nothing, because remember, the status quo wants to always keep you down. So therefore, you're on your own. In Jamaica, you're on your own. In Trinidad, you're on your own. You know what I mean? But what we did, we had one another. And then there was a greater sense of Pan-Africanism that was happening throughout the years. Remember, Marcus Garvey was not from America. He was from Jamaica. Pan-Africanist. That means his movement was global. It wasn't just about, he fought against the Klan. He fought against whatever. But the problem is he had to fight against his own people. But I digress. When we look at this failure, a lot of these things were done to us through social engineering. And everybody, you're always watching what we're doing. If we have a Black Panther Party for self-defense and that movement is spreading, and then Fred Hampton is able to make a rainbow coalition. Jesse Jackson didn't start that. Fred Hampton started that, where he was able to get poor whites and other ethnic groups together. He was looked at a person that they called him a Black Messiah because the way he was able to rally every different type of ethnic group that was being oppressed into one cause, to understand that we're not enemies, but our government is. He was able to understand. So these people, they had to be taken care of and assassinated, but it's the engineering that takes place after that, because I need to separate you guys, because the strongest element to Black struggle is a Black family.
Yes.
So if you create a gender war, if you say you don't need the man to rely on him, and I say that because when families go on welfare in other ethnic groups, the family can go on welfare. With us, the family can't go on welfare. The woman has to go and show that there is no man supporting her in the house. Even if he makes 2 cents over a threshold, they can't get the supplements to support them, to help them through poverty. So therefore, he has to go, or he has to be hidden, which a lot of people did early on. He has to be hidden. But now you're able to get this. It is not just, that's from the poor people's point of view. The other points of view is that there is an idea that we can socially build wealth without one another. And now they're coming out with all of these the data analysis and statistics on the fact that the reason why we are the most poor as a people, even after all of this time, everybody has more, the average wealth is greater than ours. right? Whites, way above us. Asians, way above us. Even Hispanics, way above us. We have the least because we are the most divided. Now they're saying that it is worth for us to have families and stick together so that we can build wealth, because wealth is not something that a black woman can build on her own. It's impossible. Right. And they sold to our wolf ticket to believe that it's okay for us to for her to take that route, not knowing that, hey, we are a stronger force together than when we're apart. It's not to say that sisters can't do it on their own, but what are you doing? You're only doing half if you're not able to get that and combine to make strong black wealth amongst your family so that your kids can inherit something. Most black kids don't get inheritance.
That's a fact.
We get sustained throughout our lives, and then after that, we're on our own by the age of 18, 17, whatever. You got to do what you got to do for yourself. No other culture does that.
That's right. We GoFundMe funerals.
Exactly. For even for a funeral, you know what I'm saying? No life insurance, no nothing. And now there's people that are trying to build their houses, and they're understanding they have to get away from the American engineering, because that's what it is. That's what the women liberal movement is. They have this other movement with brothers. I forgot what they call it now, but I don't need a woman. I can be all of this stuff like that. We're playing games with what God originally meant us to be. We were meant to be a community, and communities are built through strong families. And we were able to stand strong against a lot of different epidemics that we had. Because remember, the crack epidemic and the AIDS epidemic, and now these epidemic of violence and separation that's happening with us now. It's not the first epidemic black people have been through in this country, but we were able to survive and sustain ourselves because we had strong black families.
I mean, what you're saying right now is beyond paramount. I think some of us are aware of it. Many more are clearly not aware of it. I want to ask you something that I always was interested about you. Your relationship with Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Is it possible you could tell us about your relationship with Dr. Leonard Jeffries? And
yeah, that's a quick one. I have no relationship with Dr. Leonard Jeffries. But this is my history with him, right?
Okay.
This is my history with him. When I went to college, and I believe this is divine in nature, but this is me. I may be wrong. I went to college. When I first went to college, I went to City College, right? I went to study architecture. It didn't work out. But as I was doing my work study, my mother said, well, do your work study at the Black Studies
Department, man. Yeah, so many people came through there, brother.
Yeah, but she said that because a lot of people is not there, so you don't have to do a lot of work, right? You just be there chilling, whatever.
Yeah.
That Black Study Department is a little bit different. This is Dr. Jeffries, Professor Smalls, Jeannie Bain. If you know any of these people, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are hitters. These are people that, they're heavy. They had a lot of controversy around the curriculum of inclusion where they were trying to change, the way Black history was being taught on not just a collegiate level, but in education and academia, period, regardless of where. So I'm there and probably in one of the busiest places in the whole campus. You know what I mean? So, but it was very interesting because I was grading papers for Professor Smalls.
Wow.
Yeah, I was grading.
I mean, Chief, you just can't say that in passing. We're gonna need you to slow that down just a little bit. How do you come to meet Professor Smalls, much less become the person that helps him grade papers?
I'm the college assistant there, right? I'm the work study person. So yes. I do. The lady was Miss Marion. She was the one that was running the department, right? She's the admin. So yes. I work under her. So as I'm there, they're professors, they're teachers. But if you can do work that they don't need to do, then you do the work, right? I would grade quizzes, right? He would give me the key and say, these are the right answers, whatever the case may be. If they say anything close to this, you can correct it, right? Whatever. So how I wound up doing Professor Smalls, because he was faculty, and yes. He saw me, he said, brother, I see you, I see you with your fringes on, and I see you with David. Yeah, Professor Smalls knows Israel. So he's like, said I see you, all this stuff like that, whatever, you Hebrew, whatever the case may be. So he was one of the few people, because a lot of them that were there, I don't want to use the term like hoteppers, but they were into
right.
Egyptology, black nationalism, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And you could hear them talking stuff about you.
You mean the Dr. Reggie's in them? Yeah.
They were there in the departments and stuff like that. And they were there, and they were talking about Israel. They don't believe in Africa and stuff like. And they were saying stuff that wasn't true. But I wasn't in a position to get into a debate with them at the time. But with Professor Smalls, he just he welcome all faiths. He's not a person that's like that. So when he saw me, he was like, "Yo, brother," he kind of gave me a stamp of approval, right? So. Yeah. But it was like, I got this work for you, because your job is to kind of do. You're standing and not doing nothing. Okay, grade these papers. So I was grading papers for quizzes. If you had anything for me to do, of anything, I had to pick up a lot of their checks. I was able to peek at their checks and stuff. I probably wasn't supposed to do that, but I had to see if they gave me the right check. I had to do that.
Right.
So sometimes I just see salary, but they had to show me whether or not the person was getting the right check. So I had to pick up checks. Sometimes you check boxes, different things of that nature, pick up different things. But I was there with Professor Jeffries. He wasn't there a lot, because at that time, remember, he was big. So if he wasn't in the classroom, he was doing a lot of lectures. So he was out of town a lot.
Yes.
And one time he passed through, and he just told me, he said, "Yeah, boom, boom, boom," and he was so proud. And he stopped me in the hallway. He said, "Yeah, we had to sue the state, or we had to sue the state because of the such and such in the curriculum of inclusion that we were trying to do. And you know what? We just won. No. Like this, right?" So this is an interesting part. I was tapped, but my brother Mora Uriah, Naphtali, tapped me to do. There was a tribute to Ivan Van Sertima, right?
Okay.
That a sister was throwing, and she
in his lifetime, by the way, while he was still alive.
It was fast. It was a tribute. It was a tribute
to
his work. So he had already passed away. This was like this was probably 2014, 2015. And the sister that I met, she's passed away since this time as well. But she was like, you can see the sketches. I had to, go to a little interview and stuff like that. And not a real interview, but it's just, West Indian people from Trinidad, they gotta look you up and down to see if you look in your face, if you're really serious, like if you really what you are, right? So I had to meet with them, and they saw like, boom, 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 this is what we're going to be doing, whatever. So it was all good. You said you came highly recommended, but let's see what you're made of, type of thing. You know what I mean? So I had to do an opening speech for Dr. Jeffries, and obviously Dr. Jeffries and Ivan Van Sertima were contemporaries, knew each other. And if anybody doesn't know, I think Ivan Van Sertima wrote They Came Before Columbus. Very impactful book.
Extensive logical work.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was a champion on talking about the greatness of Black people pre-America.
That's right.
That we were over here in this country before America, providing evidence that we were in this country based on that we did trade with the Native Americans. That we had places here already before, they took us from the transatlantic slave trade, and we were here in groves.
That's right. He was able to prove early pre-American African interaction on this side, just by assessing the equality of bone fragments left in the ground, shields and spears, which date back to times where African kingdoms were at the height of their power, and having a particular niche that you can only find in West Africa. So his work was incredible.
Yeah. Even with food, I think the cotton that's grown here. They said that the cotton came here in 3 ways. It came, if it either traveled through the Atlantic, which it wouldn't have been able to make the trip right through the water. Cotton could survive a certain amount of time, but it wouldn't be viable by the time it got here. The wind, right? Because that happens, but the wind is too extensive between here and Africa. So they're saying the cotton that was here is the same cotton that was going to Africa, and the cotton was here before the colonists came. So when he came, the cotton that they have, they compare it to the cotton, because the other place that the cotton grows is in Africa. So there's there were too many just scientific comparisons that knew that the impact of the black people that were here, we were already having trade in this country. Now they're saying Mansa Musa may have brought entourages of people to this part of the land back and forth for years.
And he had the money and resources for
and he had
sure.
the money and resources to do it. So it makes sense that he was able to do stuff like that. But to that point, that with Dr. Jeffries, so I wound up doing this segment, and I'm hopefully I'm gonna try to have Chief Uziel like redo it for a DCB show.
That would be great. That would be great.
So that most people can see it. But I opened up for him, and you know he did his part, and it was very good because you know he came up to me and said, you know, you spoke very well, right? And I got pictures of him and I together, just shaking hands and what have you. And the interesting part was I didn't notice, but we were born on the same day. We share the same birthday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I was there, I didn't even notice, but I was there. I shouted him out because I said, I know he doesn't remember me. When I was, you know, first out of college, I worked in the office with Miss Marion, and I was around when he was like fighting, and the system was fighting against him, against the curriculum of inclusion, and that he'd been fighting the struggle for us a long time, you know, and this trying to make sure that we are educated right, you know. And
give us a timeline when you're at City College. By the way, are you in? If my memory serves me correct, you would have been in City College by 97, 96, right? 98.
I was there in 94.
90, even earlier, 94. I started John Jay at 97. You're about 3 years older than me.
Yeah. I started there in 94. I lasted about a year. Excuse me, I'm gonna take that back. I graduated high school in Brooklyn Tech in 93. So I started City College that same year in August.
Chief, just for a moment, I have to say this because there's a lot of people that watch my channel that are not from New York. Brooklyn Tech, for everybody that doesn't know, is a technical school that you have to take a test to get into. Right. And it's considered a school for people who are intellectually astute.
Right.
Many people annually attempt to take the test for this school and they do not get in.
Right.
It just so happens that in the 90s, I also want to include this part. It became a battleground for many tough people growing up in the inner cities of Brooklyn, right? Who were intelligent, but also in the streets.
Right.
But I just wanted to highlight, when you say Brooklyn Tech, people who are not from New York, they have no idea that this is a really, really high level school to get into. And not only were you there, but you graduated and then you go on to other prestigious places. So please do continue.
Tech was it was the only school I got into. I mean, besides my zone school, I didn't want to go to Wingate or any other school, but you had to take a test to get in. It's one of the top schools in the country. But it was also the home of the Decepticons too. So it's not, it wasn't, it was a balance, right? So
no joke.
Yeah, it was a balance, but I was able to have some strides inside there. There was a movement started in there that brought out a lot of Israelites as well. So a lot of the teachers in the community actually came out of Brooklyn Tech. But when I was at City College, I was there in 90. Yeah, that year was the fall semester of 93, spring semester of 94. So we were at this event. This event was actually at Restoration. I just noticed that afterwards, just looking into to Professor Jeffries, that we were born actually on the same day, and it's just ironic. We wound up being in that space at the same time, and it was a good event. But that's my history with Dr. Jeffries. It wasn't like as far as my personal relationship, like I said, I don't have any.
Okay.
That's my history with him. Those experiences that I had just working under him and for him at one time, and then years later wound up being able to speak to open up a speaking engagement for him as he was the keynote speaker at this event. So I was able to
a lot of Israelites have been in some very interesting places. When I finally meet Professor Smalls in the year 2016, that year 2016 keeps coming up, right? I finally meet him about 2016, and it's in Soneta's house, on Soneta's couch, and he says to me, young man, I know the elders in your community. He said, I know I look young, and he's being funny. He said, I know I look young, but I've been around a long, long time. He says
Yeah,
that, he did security for Malcolm X and Malcolm X's family.
yeah, he
Uh,
has.
and he said, your teacher, Cohen Mikael, was one of my best students. And me looking at Cohen Mikael as such a pillar, the Hebrew family of Guyana, and he's formerly located in Hashaba, Israel, here in New York City,
Right.
right? Me looking at him as such a pillar, and not just a pillar, but from the 90s, I always remembered him as a man of age. From the 90s, I want to say he was at least in his 50s when I met him.
Right.
Right. And so Professor Small's now telling me, oh, he was my student. I'm looking at Professor Small's like, well, how old are you?
Yes.
Right.
Professor Small's been teaching for a long time.
Long time, man.
A long time.
Long time.
I don't even know if he's retired right now. I know he still has his other things he does.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's officially, retired from that part of his life.
Yeah.
Like, but he's always, it's a lifetime journey with some people. He's never going to stop being who
he's
he is.
never going to stop. The last time I spoke to him was 2 years ago on the phone. I called him. We had a rather long conversation, and he talked about a community that he's building in Ghana and Nigeria.
Yes.
And he was doing a series of lectures on Sonata TV to galvanize people to donate towards the building efforts in that community. He was actually involved. He's actually involved. It might be complete by now in the building of a hotel down there.
Nice.
So like as you said, he's not going to stop.
Right? He said Ghana is like his second home. Like he's always in Africa, period. But I know Ghana is like a place that he's really, according to him, that he's there like a lot, like really trying
a whole lot.
To build
a whole lot. Chief, just going back to Nat Turner for a moment as we bring this to a slow wrap and a slow close.
Yeah, we forgot all about Nat. So,
but it's been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah,
it's impossible to have you here and not try to get as much as I can out of you, as the community can obviously see. You're a man of great experience, and you have a lot of knowledge. I don't like that when Nat Turner's history is told. I don't like the language used. Right. I even had to catch myself, because when I first put this up on YouTube, I wrote Nat Turner Slave Rebellion. No. Nat Turner Rebellion.
Right.
Right. We speak of him being born a slave. He was born enslaved.
Right.
Right. Talk to us, Chief, about what we can learn today from his story. Nat certainly taught us that we could resist the powers that be. He showed it to us, and he showed it to us that it can happen with very small numbers, which means we have no excuses, right, Chief? And from what we developed in learning his story, at least the mystical side, the man fasted, he prayed, which means he had a God-conscious element that was foundational towards inspiring his revolution. What do we take away, and what do we learn from Nat Turner's rebellion, Chief?
So I'm glad you said this, because this is part of what I wanted to wrap with. Have you noticed the prophets of our past? They kind of had these visions that came from God. I say kind of had them, but they either had dreams or visions that came from God. And a lot of them didn't want to do the work and were called to do the work. Some of them wanted to do the work and were called to do the work. And their struggle was very similar, to the extent that there's ways that God can compel you to do certain things, even if you don't want to do it. But if you are the right person for the job, then God will have you do it. Just like Jeremiah was called before he was born.
Prophet from the womb.
Nat Turner, since he was people saw it, the slave masters saw that he was intelligent. The slave masters looked at him and said, let's teach him how to read it, because whatever it is, he's grasping all of this information. And this is what they became afraid of, his education. His education wasn't in science. It wasn't in mathematics. It wasn't in chemistry or anything of that. It was in spirituality. And he was able to galvanize enough that he felt that he had to have an impact. And till this day, he has an impact. But, the problem is we don't learn about Nat Turner in schools. We learn, there's even a book called The Confessions of Nat Turner that's actually a book of fiction. If you, our brother Irritated Genie, talks about how they wrote a book that was fiction about how he was a rapist and was a pedophile and all types of crazy stuff going on. And, and they made a work of fiction so that now when you look at Nat Turner, you'll see these things and you think that it was real, that he actually did these things. And there's nothing like that in the original Confessions and the bios of Nat Turner, right? So they're trying to curate this illusion of this character to make you think that he was somebody that he's not. When you teach your children about the Nat Turners, the Dutty Bookmans, and everything of that nature, you get the understanding that people were inspired to fight for their freedom. We weren't always the lay down people that, the society wants us to look like we are, that we fought, that we chopped off heads in order to make sure that we secured some level of freedom. And just like Samson died. But his job wasn't to conquer and to beat the Philistines. His job was to begin to be the inspiration for people to fight for themselves, so that they don't go back and say, one man can fight 1,000, and and God can be on our side and we can do anything we need to do. And that was those inspirational people that were able to take up these fights, like David, to go and fight for us as a people, to do the job that was needed to be done, because they believed in what their ancestors already did. And that's why when we talk about men like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Nat Turner, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, they were all ministers. And look at the power that these people were able to have. Nat Turner was more of a Joshua. He wanted to roll, heads to roll. You had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. These two men, whether you know it or not, had political and international reach, far beyond what they actually teach you in school. That's what made Malcolm so dangerous, because he wanted to take the United States to world court for the mistreatment of Black people on this earth. And he had the support of all of all of the Black and brown nations throughout the planet.
The world. That's right. That's right.
He was able. It was something that he was able to do, and he had people that were able to take up his cause. So then, for when he got assassinated, it was bigger than just the Nation of Islam. There were a lot of people that wanted Malcolm dead because of what he was trying to do. Dr. King was talking about social reformation and economic reformation. So when he gave that last speech about I done seen the promised land, and I might not get there with you, because he's comparing himself to Moses, because he believes that his ticket is up, that they're going to try to take care of him. And a lot of people that wanted to see him go was in his circle. You know what I mean? So they had it out for him, because he did not, I keep saying this every time I teach, he did not die from that gun wound. He died in the hospital. He got to the hospital alive. Everybody that boy witnessed to him know that he got inside there and he was put in the room with a bunch of the cops and stuff like that, and then he wound up dying. He did not succumb to his wounds because of that gunshot. But he began to talk about giving Black people. He said, if you can fight a war in Vietnam and spend billions of dollars there, then you can spend billions of dollars to get God's children off their feet. And this is how he referred to us. So with all of that, you see that there's always going to be those individuals. God always has a ram in the bush for his people, regardless of how they come across, right? Everybody's not going to be, oh, I'm Israel, da, 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 da. And sometimes that's not for you to look for. You need to look for the God in the person, and the fact that God is bringing this person along the best way he can. Because remember, God prescribed the ignorance that we deal with today.
That's right.
God said that we will be doing this and serving other gods and doing other things. So when people come up with their religions, that's the path that God chose them to come through, right? And I told one brother this. I said, Farrakhan may do what he does, but if it comes to this part, Torah part, that's where you're supposed to come in.
That's right. That's right.
Why God gave that to you. You know what I mean? So it's not for the minister to do everything. Like
that's right.
When Barack Obama got elected, the minister said, his job is to run America. He got to deal with all of America, because he's now the president of the United States. He's not here to look out for just Black people. He's here to deal with the country now.
Right.
So that's his job. Everybody has their job to do. It was Farrakhan's job to deal with to bring 1 million plus men to Washington long to declare themselves. And listen, if it didn't work then or whatever, but he did it.
He did it.
He did it.
Right.
He was able to do something impactful that people were proud of. And there were people that were there that they were not Muslim. They don't agree with everything Farrakhan has to say, but they believed in what he was trying to do.
That's right.
Sometimes that's enough. You were not there, and I wish you was. But when we were some years ago, and I'm glad we did it. May God bless the soldier's memory. Dr. Khalid Muhammad. We went to see Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and I was talking to the brothers. I'm like, there's a rally happening. You know me. Let's go to the rally. You know what I'm saying? Let's get up, scoot up. Let's go to the rally. You know what I'm saying? So we got on our uniforms. That's what we had, the army uniforms, and our turbans up. And there was at least 12 of us, and we lacked a little bit of discipline because of our youth, but we were trying to get organized, and we got to see him, and it was such a powerful speech that he was given, because that's the way Dr. Khalid talked. He always talks off the radar, and it was good because now we were a part of history because he's no longer here. So we were able to, and this is the reason why you will respect the Farrakhan, because there's people that you don't know the time that God has given everybody, and these people are having an impact. Yes, I went to see Dr. Umar Johnson, and when he came to Brooklyn, you know what I mean? If I get to see him again, I want to see him again, because this is what a part of what we're trying to understand, is that he is providing information that's essential. And he's not like, oh, I'm this and I'm that and I'm the other. He's providing information for us as a people that we need to understand. And if you listen to some of his speech and the stuff he has to say, he's providing a lot of essential information, especially when it comes to Black education. Especially when it comes to Black education, it's very important that we get what we can get from people, because we don't know how long
that's right.
We don't know what the government going to try to do. We just need to grab these jewels while we can and get the information while these men are alive, and hopefully and praying that God sustains life with everybody, because it's up to the Most High. So, but
that's right, Chief. I have one last thing to close, and that's the form of a quote. We did speak of at a point in this conversation about J. Edgar Hoover's fear of the rise of a Black Messiah. There's another quote that he says in relation to this, and he says, I quote, "There will never be another Black Messiah unless we create him." I want to close there very opportunely, because I believe that the Black Messiah that we're looking for may very well come in the form of somebody that the government creates for us. So that we have to be very, very careful of how we are in receipt of people. We've seen the polites, right? We've seen these people that come in the community and their words are so impactful, Chief. They got the gift of gab. They know this language. They talk is real. But you take a step back and you assess the quality of the works, their actions, and you automatically know, this person is not called by the Father.
Right.
Not at all. This person has the gift of gab for sure and charisma, but they're not called by the Father. Close us out, Chief, with our desire to want to see a Black Messiah, to the extent that we might not be able to tell the difference between the one the Creator sent versus the one that was created by the factions in this country.
Interesting. So do you remember the book of Jeremiah? As Jeremiah was prophesying, there was a prophet, excuse me, don't call him prophet. There was a false prophet that tried to undermine Jeremiah and say that, oh, God is not going to send Babylon and everything's going to happen and we're going to be free from Babylon, what have you, right? Then he was pronounced, Jeremiah said, okay, because you said that and you blasphemed in the name of the Most High, you lied, right? This is what's going to happen to you. Have you noticed that the government will try to do everything, right? But what men propose, God dispose. And a lot of times their work doesn't work because it's not genuine and people can see past it. We live in an era, even though our era, social media got us going crazy, and we live in an era because everybody want to smoke weed now and do all types of crazy things. But we live in the era of information, and a lot of the things that America tried to do for years is exposed. The puppets that they gave us are now being exposed. Everything that we see that they made us gravitate and love money and popularity more than righteousness, all of that stuff is being exposed. So when it comes to stuff like that, you begin to see things and people be exposed, right? And my thing is not so much to look for the Messiah in the person, but look for the Messiah in you. Look for the you. Look for the righteousness that you can give to other people, because that's where a lot of this is going to come from. It's going to come from brothers like me and you being able to talk and have dialogue and build. Right?
That's right.
People in the community coming together to make sure that things happen, as opposed to a figure, because too much we idolize, right? We idolize individuals, and we know what God says about idols. We idolize individuals too much, where we're looking for something to save us out of our predicament, instead of us being able to be cooperative and save ourselves. It took the children of Israel 40 years to get into the land, when it was just an 11-day journey, right? And it wasn't because our feet was worn and we was beat down or anything like that. God sustained us, but we did not cooperate. We didn't cooperate with our God. We didn't cooperate with our leadership, and we didn't cooperate with one another. So that's what takes 40 years. And we can accomplish a lot as a people, right? And if we do the right things, God will send us that person. It's like, we wait for that person, but we invoke the presence of God's anointed.
That's a fact.
We invoke that presence, because why would God send us somebody to help us out if we're not ready to be helped?
Talk to me. That's right.
We got to be ready to be helped. So once we put ourselves in a position that we are ready, we're cooperative, we want to see change. We want to get out of this land, whether physically, spiritually, or even mentally. We want to be able to see an impact, right? That Israelites have been fighting to do certain things for years, and we've never gone far. We've had a lot of camps, a lot of different organizations, but we haven't had the impact that we need to have. We haven't had control of our clothes and our food and our shelter, our political systems. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything. You can open up a million cans, but we don't run into societies that we live in, and we need to get to that point where this is what we do. So
that's right.
When we get to that point, when God sees that we're ready and we have that level of cooperation, we don't have to worry about who's going to be our leadership. It's going to happen.
And on that note, Chief, there's nothing left for me to say except to say it's been an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
I admire, love, and respect you dearly and greatly. There's coming a time where we could have that conversation in person.
Amen.
But I'm feeling the need to really, really say to you right now that you are valued, my brother. You truly are. And unbeknownst to you, many of us have been looking at you and watching you for years. And the things that you've said, but more importantly, the things that you've done, have been a huge inspiration in my life. I don't know, at the ages of 15 and 16, when I'm first meeting you, what my life would be like if you're not one of the people that I'm looking at. Right? We all have to be honest with ourselves, to the extent that we do realize that part of our changing or part of our evolution of self, our self-evolution, occurs from the people we see in our environment day to day, and how and in which way they impact us. For me, you are certainly one of the people that impacted me in a great way. And it's been an honor to have you here. I look forward to having you here many more times by the grace of the Almighty.
Thank you, my brother.
Continue to do what you do. And by the way, Chief, how can people find you, for those who might be interested in coming to some of your events? Because I just want to make our community aware that Chief Naphtali Ben Dan puts together events throughout the year and throughout the years. And in order to keep up to par with these events, people are going to need to know how to find you, Chief. So how do we find you and get in contact with you?
So you can find me. Basically, Facebook is the easiest way. I'm also on the gram, but I'm on Facebook. Is you can look up Naphtali David, at Facebook. On Facebook. Um, Let me see my Instagram because I have 2 Instagram pages.
Please do
Um,
take your time. Take your time.
yeah, I just want to make sure that
Take your
I'm
time.
saying them right.
Take your time. While you're doing that, I just want to shout out Hadara Mora Hadassah. Thank you so much for your donation. She says a truly moving build, truly a truly moving build, truly a conversation to remember and savor. Brought up so much in me. Many thanks and Yah's blessing to these chief kings coming together in galvanizing dialogue.
Amen.
Thank
So that's
you.
for that sister's life.
Thank you.
Thank you. My Instagram is Naphtali David 76. And that's basically I haven't moved to any other social media platforms yet. I'm old, so I still stick with Facebook and Instagram.
You know, Chief,
YouTube, you can find me on YouTube on DCB channel as well. A lot of
that's
the
right. That's right.
um,
You know, Chief, I have to say it for my guests because they're never gonna say it. Most of the people that I have here are genuinely humble. You are one of those people. Except for you, it's hard to just altogether use the words humble because you're humble, but you have such a powerful spirit. You really do. And so it's hard to just use the word humble when speaking of you, but I'm going to use it in this moment. A lot of the
gotcha.
people that I have here are too humble to ever say so, and they don't expect anything. But I would like the communities to support as much as they can. So please, Chief, if you can, could you tell us your Cash App so we could send something your way just as appreciation for your contribution over the years and even for your contribution in this moment because there are going to be people who are not here now. They're going to be going back watching the live that are so thankful for much of what you said and would simply like to show their love and appreciation, Chief.
Got you. So my Cash App is, you can find me. My name is Naphtali David. That's NAPHTALIDAVID. But my handle is $ First Kings BK, and that Kings is spelled with a Z. So it's FIRSTKINGZ BK. That's my Cash App handle. And that First Kings is my clothing line. It's not suspended. It's just we reforming because I have to find another place to do a lot of my t-shirt work. But that is my brand. But if anybody feels free to give, just put a donation down there. Feel free. God is good.
Please finish
And
the spelling for me. I got First and Kings with a Z. What else?
BK.
BK?
Yeah, First Kings BK. So that's FIRSTKINGZ BK. And you'll
All
see
right.
the logo is a lion with the crown, a
All
golden
right.
lion with the crown.
Well, again, Chief, it's been an honor. Please do come back, Chief. I'm definitely going to send you some invites, but if you have any events that you're putting together, please bring it to this channel and make it aware to this particular community here. We value you, Chief. We live in an era where we wait till people are not here to give them their flowers.
Thank you.
And I'm not trying to be Nori. I'm not trying to be Drink Champs. But I do want to make sure that the brothers and the sisters in our community are received well while they could smell it, while they could feel it, while it's tangible, Chief. So, again, from me to you, Chief, I've been around for quite some time, not close to how long you've been around. You've seen some of my lows, you've seen my highs, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for you, Chief. And I pray that the Almighty continue to be with you and your family and your journey. And may the Most High continue to bless you in all that you put your hands to do, Chief.
Thank you, my brother. I just wanted to say that, I am proud, and I think I've told you this more than once. I'm proud of what you've been able to accomplish and do and the impact that you were able to have in this community. God will bless us with the things that he knows that we can do. That's right. And, you've been showing that you have a level of commitment and been able to do things that's teaching us, right, on the level of how not just what you say, but how you're able to get the word out. You know what I mean? The networks that you were able to make. Just proud of what you've been able to accomplish. and keep on doing what you're doing, brother. And thank you very much for allowing me to be on this platform. God be with you. Definitely appreciate you.
Likewise, Chief. Have a great day and shalom. Lehitraot.
Shalom, shalom.
All right. All right, everybody. That was Chief Naphtali. I just want everybody to know that as I made mention, this is a platform, guys, where we are really trying to galvanize our community towards being acclimated and introduced to some very prolific figures, either in our community, first and foremost, as well as outside of our community, both man, woman, and even if we can get some of the youth on this platform. So those of you who know people that you think are noteworthy and remarkable enough, please email me at zionlex@gmail.com so we can begin to fill this sacred space with some very powerful minds. I'm going to ask once again that everybody show our brother some love. If everybody showed our brother some love, that would be greatly appreciated. His Cash App is on the screen. If you are not here live and you're watching the live stream, it's not too late. When you catch the live stream, you can send then as well. I want to thank everybody for patroning this lecture that we had today on Nat Turner's Rebellion. I hope that we all took something very powerful away from it, and we coming strong, ready or not. As my teacher would say, ready or not, here we come. All praise to the Creator. Shalom, everybody. Take care. We out.
All right. It's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys were definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.